He was totally into fitness, always chasing gains and never missing a chance to load up on protein. For him, starting over in a place where everything was about protein just seemed like the dream. Was that guy who lived for his whole mindset was just about lifting heavy, nothing else really got through to him. When he turned 17, he decided to test himself and tried lifting 10 tons. Right when he was this close to leveling up past everyone else and becoming the top guy on the planet. Out of nowhere, his muscles just ripped up inside him. Everything around him faded out and he started blacking out, barely hanging on. He figured if he was more jacked, stuff like this wouldn't even go down. A random robot voice popped up right next to his ear. He just leveled up big time. Now his muscles could keep getting stronger forever. He just unlocked a rare skill, and his body was straight up ready for any fight. He just leveled up and unlocked a new special move, Hawkeye, and it even came with a passive boost that kept him steady no matter what. Started getting irritated, trying to figure out who was whispering in his ear while he was just trying to grab his boiled chicken breast takeout. Once everything around him came into focus, he snapped up fast. He was lost for a second since he'd just been grinding through a challenge right before this. Right then, his unshaken skill kicked in. He stood there looking out at this huge field packed with chickens everywhere he looked. He finally got what was going on. He probably went way too hard on the chicken breast and found himself stuck in some nightmare, surrounded by angry chickens out for payback. That's why a bunch of chickens kept coming after him. Lost it and chucked whatever was in his hand straight at the chicken that messed with him. He was already annoyed because he couldn't get his protein fix. Right as a voice called out, Hawkeye switched on. He spotted the target, a chicken weighing about 68 kilos packed with protein. He couldn't believe the voice actually knew how much protein was in it. He thought maybe this was some kind of boost sent down by the OG fitness legend. He just nodded and went with it, figuring he might as well chill and eat. Before long, all that was left of the chicken were bare bones. He finished eating and let out a burp, looking pretty pleased with himself. He started to notice his arms looked way skinnier than he remembered. His chest looked way less built than before. His back, which he could barely reach when he was a little kid, was now super easy for him to touch. Could tell something was off. There was no way he was about to accept that everything he'd worked for just disappeared. He glanced down at the water and caught his own reflection staring back at him. He just lost it. He started freaking out, yelling and trying to figure out why his muscles had disappeared. Right now, he honestly didn't care where he was anymore. He needed to ditch his skinny frame and get back to being tall and jacked. He grabbed onto a big tree dug in and just yanked it right out of the ground, using everything he had. He just picked up the entire log and threw it over his shoulder like it was nothing. He announced he was about to start doing log squats. He always thought that if he put in the grind, he'd see results, like hard work would always have his back. He wanted to level up his stamina, so he started adding jump squats to his workouts. After grinding for 3 straight months, he still looked the same, no muscle, nothing changed, like all that effort went to waste. Luckily, there was plenty of protein around in this world, so he didn't have to stress about that at all. He figured it was time to start over and hit the gym as a total newbie. But right when he was getting into it, this massive head popped up behind him out of nowhere. He turned around and just froze. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. There was this giant chicken just standing there. He just couldn't figure out why the world kept coming at him like this. All he wanted was to get ripped. Honestly, was that too much to ask? The giant chicken came at him with crazy speed and power. He knew if he got hit even once, it was probably game over. But honestly, the chickens going after him was way worse. Couldn't stop staring at how ripped that creature's chest looked. He started thinking about how birds flap their wings and if that could actually build up your chest. The idea got him curious, so he figured maybe he should just build his own cable machine at home to hit those chest flies. He used to think his muscles weren't getting any bigger just because he wasn't strong enough, but then he started kicking himself for not working on the smaller muscle groups the right way. The Hawkeye's skill kicked in again. Turns out the massive chicken was called chicken, and it packed a wild 12,000 kilograms of protein. He found out that if he ate chicken breast, he'd unlock a rare skill that helped his muscles recover way faster. When he heard that, he spun around and stared straight at, ready for whatever was coming next. Most people thought hitting the gym was when you got stronger, but he understood that lifting actually tore up your muscles. His muscles just weren't working right, and his strength tanked for a bit. After getting good food and enough sleep, his muscles came back even tougher than they were before. People called this super recovery. So if he bounces back quicker, his muscles start growing faster too. That meant he could finally ditch his scrawny body a lot sooner. He was so locked in on his goal that he didn't even care if it put his life on the line. Getting chest muscles that solid doesn't just happen overnight. It takes doing the same reps over and over, grinding nonstop. Out of nowhere, a voice came through, saying there was some serious power showing up, way more than what most people have when they're ready to throw down. With the battle-ready physique skill gone, he picked up a new special move, bone reinforcement. He pulled out one of his go-to gym moves on Chicken, not even thinking twice about it. This one's called dumbbell row. Now Ku and Chicken were the ones totally lost. 1 second later, its head just blew up, and then the voice came through, letting him know his muscles took some real damage. He needed to get his strength back and look ready for action again. He couldn't care less if that voice wanted to run the skill again. He just knew for sure he was getting his chicken breast today. No way he was going hungry. Once he finished the chicken breast, he unlocked this rare skill that let his muscles bounce back crazy fast. He still had no clue where he even was, or what kind of weird creatures might be around. Not too far off, 3 people locked their eyes on him, watching like they were waiting for something big to happen. They couldn't help it, the food looked so good, their mouths just started watering nonstop. These humanoid monsters hadn't caught the scent of fresh meat in ages. They started thinking if the person who took down Chicken was actually around. He was starting to think that monster, the one that looked just like a regular person, could actually be it. Even though they were nervous, they still wanted to go up and see what was up. He just stopped mid-bite, chicken still in his mouth, totally caught off guard. He wondered who these people with big, hopeful eyes really were. The monsters showed up and let everyone know they were ghouls from. Hawkeye switched on, revealing that a ghoul really just had about 6 kilos of protein in them. He got super embarrassed and promised himself, thinking about the ancestor of fitness, that he'd never look at people like they were snacks again. The ghouls showed up, saying they were on the hunt for whoever took down Chicken. He had no clue Coon Chicken even had an owner, so when he found out, he just kind of blurted out that he was the one who took it out. As soon as they heard the news, the 3 ghouls got hyped and started celebrating. After the top dog Chicken from was gone, every group out there started scrapping over who controlled what. Totally ignored whatever the ghouls were saying. He looked at those skinny legs and honestly started thinking if they'd just snap after one solid hit. Out of nowhere, a ghoul showed up and bowed down, asking the legendary Chicken Slayer for some backup. He paused for a second trying to process, then told them to run it back so he could catch what they just said. He couldn't make out anything anyone was saying. The ghoul looked lost, thinking he'd already gone over this 9 times. He let out an awkward laugh, trying to explain that you had to repeat it 10 times for it to count as a set. But the ghoul just stared, totally clueless about what a set even was. He broke it down straight. If you really want to get good at something, you've got to try it at least 10 times. The ghouls were totally clueless about what was going on. He clearly wasn't going to do anything, so they got up and decided to dip. He said sorry, explaining he'd been all about working out and just didn't have any extra time. The ghouls totally got it. He handed them some chicken breast to take home, since there was no way he could eat it all by himself. The ghouls heard what he said and instantly lit up, looking genuinely grateful. Right when one of them reached to grab the chicken breast, something happened. He could tell right away that something was off. If the ghoul tried to pick it up standing like that, he was definitely gonna mess up his lower back before he even got home. He caught on fast and shut the ghoul down right away. He launched into a full-on rant, getting fired up as he laid out every way with sloppy form could mess someone up. He nearly lost his back for good right there. He didn't really get what he messed up, but he owned up to it and said sorry for real. Suddenly got hit with the thought that these ghouls probably had no clue what it even was. They honestly hadn't come across that word ever before. He finally got why they all looked so skinny. He remembered what his master told him way back in elementary school. Being able to teach someone else basically meant you really got it. When training starts to feel stuck, teaching someone else can actually help you level up way quicker. The 3 ghouls looked like they were really having a hard time lugging that chicken breast around. It was way heavier than they expected, and they kept fumbling with it, almost dropping it more than once. Out of nowhere, the thing in their hands felt way lighter, almost like something just changed. He let them know he'd catch up at their village after he finished his meal. He figured he could handle it tomorrow, but right now, he needed to crash or his muscles might just start disappearing. The next day, he pulled up to the ghoul village. The ghoul king greeted him, recognizing him as a legit warrior. Hawkeye was just about to drop the ghoul king's protein stats, but then shut it down before he could say anything. He started thinking maybe the ghoul king was just their version of a local boss, kind of like how tribes have their own leaders. Just by looking at those skinny arms and legs and that big puffy stomach, he could tell the Ghoul King barely worked out and probably spent most of his time eating and chugging drinks. The Ghoul King told his crew to grab every last piece of chicken breast, but could tell right away those guys were way too weak, so it was gonna take them forever to haul it all back. The Ghoul King just started cracking up, not even fazed. He looked over and basically called him out, wondering if he was actually stressing over those servants. Got annoyed right away. Everyone knew the Ghoul King wasn't sugarcoating it. He straight up called ghouls the weakest squad in Olive. He was trash at fighting up close. Nobody else around had any powers, so they all just barely got by, eating whatever gross, leftover bodies they could find. Cut in, totally confused about what a skill actually meant. The Ghoul King just assumed he was messing around. Henry made it clear he wasn't the one. The king tried to hold it in, but he couldn't help himself. He just started chuckling. He just stared them down and told the rest to haul in the 3 ghouls that dragged him back. The 3 ghouls, tied up and stuck in place, had no clue why the prince called them over out of nowhere. The king called for everyone to grab their weapons. He made it clear straight up that if someone was stronger, you had to stay loyal, no questions asked. This was something their people had stuck with forever, basically an old school rule everyone just knew. But the person they brought back was a total fake, just acting like he beat chicken and straight up lying to his face. They had to pay with their lives for pulling off something that shady. The king went all out, showing off his skill and holding up his massive shield like he meant business. Double the power this time. He raised the wooden club and brought it down hard on them. Couldn't figure out what this dude was talking about. He had plenty of time to get stronger, but instead, he just messed with people who couldn't fight back. Started thinking if this was just how things went down in this village. The king couldn't believe it. He was sure he'd already sent in his application just a little while back. He just reached out and grabbed the strike with his hands like it was nothing. The king was really trying to flex today. His heavy shield move let him make his weapon weigh heavier, like 2 to 10 times heavier, and he could crank up his strength to 4 times what it usually was. Just froze when he heard that skill was straight up broken. The king took that 32-kilogram club and cranked it up times 4. He cranked up the power, hitting twice as hard now. Stepped up and in that one move he smashed the whole club apart. The ghoul just stared, completely frozen, like he couldn't believe what he just saw. He got caught off guard by the skill for a second. What really caught him off guard was how the king acted. He switched things up and went for one of his usual gym moves. He grabbed the king by the neck, arms straight out like he was about to hit a set at the gym. He started questioning if he actually had what it took to mess with other people's lives like that. He wanted to know what the guy could actually lift on the big 3 bench squat, and since he was acting like he owned the place, the king sat there totally lost, trying to figure out if big 3 was just some weird rule about throwing 3 punches. Broke it down for everyone, saying the bench press, squat, and were the top 3 moves if you wanted to get stronger and actually build muscle. These were the go-to lifts, no debate. He looked at the other ghouls, kinda surprised, and checked if any of them even knew who they were. Watched everyone nod, then figured it was time to kick things off with a strength contest. A few seconds later, the Ghoul King wanted to know if all he had to do was pick up that thing. If took the L, he'd have to work for the Ghoul King. He gave the king a chill heads up to keep his core tight, or his lower back was basically toast. The king just sat there, thinking this guy was too clueless to ever figure out you could flip a heavy shield and use it backwards. He went for heavy shield but only cranked it up to 1/4 power. He just picked up the 200 barbell like it was nothing. Gave him props but told him to go harder next time and not hold back so much. He let the other ghouls know they should pay attention, because if he pulled this off, they'd all have to start just like him. Worked out the whole body and really showed who was the strongest. It might have seemed like everything was coming from the back, but really, his legs and hips did most of the work. He always made sure to loosen up his hips before starting, since getting hurt was the last thing he wanted. Staying safe meant he could go all in without worrying about messing up his form. He started by planting his feet about shoulder-width apart, just getting ready for the. Next up, he pushed out his chest and made sure his whole body was solid, locking in his back, core, and glutes so he wouldn't lose balance. For the third step, he made sure the bar stayed close, dragging it up his shins all the way to his thighs. He pushed through with his feet, then his legs, and finally his whole body got in on the action, just powering it up. The fourth step was getting it up to his knee. Right then, the king flashed this evil grin. He quietly cranked up the weight on the barbell, stacking on 4 heavy plates without anyone noticing. Suddenly powered up, energy just pouring off him like he was unstoppable. The barbell just disappeared, launched straight up into the air. The ghouls just froze, eyes wide, while he let out a deep breath, knowing he'd messed up and couldn't hold back his power. He realized he was gonna have to build a new barbell. Right then, every ghoul started asking the new king to let them join him. Stepped up and took the throne as the new ghoul king. After losing the 3 generals match, the former king just started doing whatever he said, no questions asked. While they talked, he realized this place was nothing like where he came from. People always talked about someone making it back to the real world before, but he wasn't trying to show up looking all skinny and weak. He decided to put that plan on hold for now. Only the strongest made it. That's the reason the old king decided to back him up. After that, he took straight to where the warriors trained. You could pretty much tell just by checking out their bodies. He walked up and noticed the training ground was totally empty. He really wanted to know what kind of training they actually did, so he just asked the former king straight up. The former king admitted he didn't really know much about it and apologized. He didn't have fancy coaches, but that didn't stop him. He just made his own gear and kept training the ghouls anyway. He called out, telling all the ghouls to get together and line up in 5 rows. He always heard people talk about how ghouls got no respect, just scraping by on whatever scraps other monsters left behind. He wanted to know what ghouls really wanted. They didn't care about strategy, scouting, or being fast. What really mattered now was having guys who were just straight up strong. He made up his mind to turn them into real soldiers in just 3 months. The ghouls started thinking, was that really enough time? They couldn't help getting hyped just thinking about finally being accepted instead of always getting side-eyed. He watched them get hyped up, and that honestly made him feel good. He told everyone to drop down and start doing push-ups. The ghouls had no idea what a push-up was supposed to be. He dropped down on the ground to show everyone what to do, then signaled for them to copy him. The ghouls crashed to the ground, landing all twisted and out of shape. He was locked in, eyes fired up and ready to go. Push-ups, that was just the start. He told everyone to drop down and crank out 100 push-ups, no excuses. 3 hours later, every ghoul just froze up. They dropped to the ground, totally wiped out. Right then, had a massive boulder stacked on his back while cranking out push-ups like it was nothing. He was locked in, pushing through, and now he'd cranked out 24,800 reps. The old ghoul king, who'd been making things tougher for him, let him know that every other ghoul was already down for the count. He made them crank out another 100 push-ups before they could even think about grabbing food. The ghouls had already knocked out 700 reps, and honestly they were at their limit. If they kept going, they probably wouldn't make it. Back then, things actually seemed smoother when ghouls were the ones running the show. They thought they'd already done something pretty cool just by getting this far. Their bodies were totally wiped out, so they just figured they'd decrash for a whole week starting tomorrow. Once he listened to what they had to say, he told every ghoul to get up. Once the session wrapped up, they got ready to eat. Called them out, saying they were only losing because their mindset wasn't strong enough. He knew acting like things were cool, while people treated him like he was nothing just wasn't it. Out in the wild, if you're not strong enough, you're done for. He watched everyone freeze up, too scared to do anything. He wondered if they'd still run the second their own people got hurt or worse. He didn't want people like that around, so he made sure they were gone. The ones who stuck it out and kept doing push-ups, he put them through serious training so they'd get strong enough to look out for the people they cared about. People always wonder who's really the top fitness coach out there. He wondered if the real champ was the guy who knew everything about muscles, or the dude who just pushed himself non-stop and hit his max. If someone really puts their mind to it, they can pull off some crazy stuff. Guys like that end up surprising everyone with what they can do. They aren't really great at coaching. A real coach is the guy who gets someone hyped to train, even when they had zero interest before. Powered through, forcing himself off the ground like his life depended on it. He was done being the weaker guy he used to be. He thought about how important it was to look out for his parents and the people he cared about. He knew he could handle it. He was putting everything on the line, not just for his tribe to make a comeback, but to level up and become someone totally new. Those skinny ghouls kept pushing themselves, knocking out push-ups non-stop and just not letting up. Nobody complained after that. Everyone was fired up and ready to go. His training plan really came through for him. He didn't have to wait long before his Hawkeye skill leveled up from 1 to 2. 3 months later, some lizard guys were making their way through the thick forest. The scouts came back and let everyone know the ghoul village was up ahead. This spot was about to turn into this first ever colony. From up high, watched them and couldn't help but notice how insanely built their muscles were. He called out to his crew, getting everyone hyped and ready to hit the bench press, making sure their form was on point. He took a breath and tightened his core. Now it's time to turn on those breaker muscles. He locked his sights right on the enemy, ready to make his move. He leaned in and started shoving the huge boulder, muscles straining as he tried to get it to roll. They got totally caught off guard by the ambush. The leader started sweating when he realized who was behind all this. Started laughing. Obviously, it was exactly who he thought it was. Naturally, it was the revived ghoul monsters who finally dropped the label of being the weakest. They didn't even stand a chance. They got wiped out right away. The leader could tell if things kept going like this, his whole crew was done for. If they managed to catch the enemy leader, everything would flip. The leader took one look at the guy standing there. Dude just had this wild energy and looked like he ran the place. Instantly, the leader could tell that had to be the main boss. He stared down the Ghoul King and let it rip, calling him out for always ducking behind his squad instead of facing things head-on. He had to step up and face him directly, just the two of them. The old Ghoul King wanted to know what Lord was gonna do about the new problem. Right then's got pulled back into an old memory. Back when he was a kid, he actually had an iguana as a pet. This was a super rare animal called the bay croc. The thing would just start drooling, basically begging him to mess around and play. The bay croc had a bite force hitting 7,700 psi, which was actually over 2 tons. His jaw strength was honestly wild. No matter how hard they tried, their attacks just bounced off his solid muscles. He already warned everyone about what goes down when a pet acts up. The bay croc instantly started sweating, totally caught off guard. Right then, he got an idea that just popped into his head. He disappeared from where he was standing in a split second. The boss kept yelling at the old Ghoul King. reached out and caught him. He was ready to toss the lizard guy over and put him flat on his back. He suddenly remembered what he had to do next. They have to look straight into each other's eyes, no turning away. He remembered reading somewhere that when animals are still young, you've got to make sure they know you're in charge right from the start. He kept telling the leader over and over that he was stronger, almost like he was trying to hype himself up. The lizard man let everyone know he was down to fight to the end. He could take losing his life, but there was no way he'd let anyone disrespect him. The next second turned up the pressure, and it was honestly intense. The leader gave in right away. He realized he couldn't win and just gave up. Could barely sit still, he was hyped. The stuff he picked up from the book, it was spot on. Nearby, over in the snowy part of Willing Island, things were starting to happen not too far from Ali Mine. The Lord of White Country was honestly proud seeing how skilled these guys turned out. He told the crew to get on a level 2 mission and find out why the chicken snake went missing. All three of them called out together, making it clear they always followed whatever the Count said. Once they dipped, the Count looked at the general, wondering if these new guys were really up for something this big. The general told him to chill. Those guys were pretty young, but everyone already knew their names. They were legit geniuses. Raphael got so good with his sword that he could mess with his opponents for fun. Fought with this wild, almost reckless style, swinging his sword with pure muscle. He didn't just swing, though, he hit so hard he could straight up break other weapons. When they teamed up, even dragons knew better than to mess with them. No one could touch them when they were together. The Count checked out the soldier standing quietly in the back and wondered if he was strong too, even though he looked pretty average. The general let out a long sigh, thinking soldier just didn't have what it takes with a sword. He only showed up because he and those three had been tight since they were kids. The general really preferred the other two geniuses. The three of them headed straight into the thick forest, trees crowding in tight around them. Way up top, a goblin was hiding out, ready to jump whoever passed by. He lined up his shot and locked his aim right on. 1 second Raphael was there and then he just disappeared. He showed up right behind the goblin, moving quiet and quick. He took him out in one hit. More goblins showed up right then, took out a bunch of guys every time he swung, told him to make sure it was safe before doing anything else. Was all about looking out for himself first. Let his guard down for just a second and a goblin managed to sneak up on him. The other two immediately checked if he was okay. Dropped his head when Raphael called him out. Embarrassment hit him hard. Just couldn't get it. They all put in work together, but somehow he was the only one falling behind. He couldn't figure out how a guy with absolutely no skill with a sword could ever get strong. Over in the ghoul village had the running non-stop drills. Their leader looked like he was about to lose it. They looked pretty beat as they left, but he just let them know they could roll through again if they wanted to train some more. The Google athletes are there too, giving them a solid welcome. They decided they'd rather go hungry than head back. When he first spotted the ghoul athletes, he honestly couldn't believe what he was seeing. Most of the time, working out breaks down your muscles, and then while you rest, they come back even stronger. When his brain starts getting tired from too much training, he just can't perform the same, so he needs to chill out and take it easy for a bit. By week 9, the ghouls started to notice things weren't moving as fast as before. He figured it was about that time for a lighter workout, so he planned to let everyone chill for the day. The next day, things got wild. The ghouls somehow leveled up overnight. They were taller and way stronger than before. Hawkeye showed up looking like a total ghoul athlete, shredded down to just 8% body fat. He started thinking that maybe ghoul athletes don't even need to take breaks from training. Once the lizard guys were out of the way, he got ready to round everyone up for some food. The ghoul athletes wanted to go out and hunt on their own today. None of the regular ghouls had ever managed to beat the cluck chicken, so they just stuck to eating whatever food he caught. Now that they had built up some chest muscles, they were ready to take down the cluck chicken. When he heard that, he felt pretty good since it meant he'd get some extra time to work on his training. The ghoul athletes got ready and headed out, totally set for what's coming. They were hurting bad. Moving around like that just made everything worse. Checked out their lunge stance and honestly thought it looked solid. At first, they'd hold on tight, but as soon as they got tired, their backs would give out and they'd end up slouching. He got hurt like that since his cartilage just wasn't strong or flexible enough. Wished his master was around, since the guy's joints were crazy tough. When everyone else was asleep, he was still out there, slicing the air with his sword. Because he let a goblin get close to Raphael and just kept saying sorry to him over and over. Knew deep down that his weakness was the reason nobody really trusted him. He promised himself he'd level up, grinding non-stop while everyone else took breaks. Out of nowhere, showed up and told him to hold his thumb and picture slicing right through the air. Got kind of embarrassed and wondered if he'd accidentally woken him up. Grinned, hoping his buddy would level up and get tougher. Kept up his secret training sessions late at night, but he just acted clueless like nothing was going on. Out of nowhere, Hander's rough voice cut through the air, calling them out and wanting to know what they were up to behind his back. Told everyone they were just hanging out and practicing, nothing else going on. Out of nowhere, someone grabbed him from behind and slapped a hand over his mouth. Raphael couldn't believe the guy who messed things up for actually had the guts to show his face here. Kept his voice down and told them that if they didn't chill out and rest up now, they'd be way slower tomorrow. He told to get plenty of sleep, saying it would make his skin look and feel softer. Sat there kinda thrown off. He just couldn't wrap his head around why his friends got into it over stuff like that. Out of nowhere, a weird sound echoed from the trees. The three guys got ready fast, knowing a fight was coming. A bunch of lizard men came charging at them, but as soon as the lizard men noticed it was three humans, they stopped in their tracks for a second, surprised. The leader was sweating like crazy, yelling for everyone to keep moving. Turns out he and his crew were running for their lives too, because this huge dark mob was right on their heels. These were the old bosses around here, the Cluck Chickens. Even the chickens started freaking out, sprinting everywhere since a bunch of demons were right behind them, hungry for anything with protein. Didn't even notice, but something was changing behind the scenes. A whole new energy pyramid was starting to build itself up. Recently, rounded up the ghoul athletes and brought them out to hunt some Cluck Chickens. He wasn't totally sure about this. He kept wondering if they could actually pull it off. The Cluck Chickens had way bigger chest muscles than the ghoul athletes, but the ghouls couldn't help thinking those muscles were just for show, like not actually doing anything. Lost his cool, he couldn't believe where those disrespectful words came from. Right then, a Cluck Chicken tripped up as it tried to go after a bug. Its body was hidden behind a couple of trees. The chicken, clearly annoyed, started shaking like it was about to lose it. Both trees just broke from all the weight pressing down on them. The Cluck Chicken spotted the bug and didn't waste any time. He snapped it up fast. The ghoul athletes spotted what was going on and just zoned out for a second, each of them lost in their own thoughts. One of them walked over to a huge tree and just stood there, right in the space between its thick trunks. He put all his strength into it, both arms going hard, but the trees just barely moved. Told him to chill for 3 minutes, then give it another shot. After catching his breath, the ghoul athlete went right back at it, ready for another round. He was totally ready this time. He pushed himself as hard as he could, noticed the athlete was totally wiped, and told him to stop and head back. Was confused. He knew bench press worked a bunch of muscles at once and got you stronger fast. Push-ups, even when you switch them up, hit those deeper muscles too. Still, something just wasn't adding up. Looked over and saw the chickens all packed together, bumping into each other non-stop. Their wings pressed together, almost like they were pushing back at each other, both refusing to back down. Finally got it. He'd been so locked in on his training getting better, he just didn't notice this at all. The ghoul athlete started thinking maybe his form was off, and he was working the wrong muscles. Let him know that wasn't really the problem. Their bodies had pretty much adapted to his workouts. They had to change up what they were doing right away. Told the ghoul athletes to get in line, setting them up in 5 neat rows. The cable machine stands right behind him. He put it together himself to switch things up in their training routine. Before he kicked things off, he got everyone to hit 3 claps together. From then on, they started hitting cable flies to build up their inner chest and take down those Cluck Chickens. The ghoul athletes were hyped about him. They said their boss always had their backs and fixed whatever mess they got into. Everyone knows Lord is on another level. Asked everyone to chill so he could break things down first. Cable fly really works the inner chest, making it stand out more and giving the chest a cleaner shape. You gotta get the movement right if you actually want to see results, and it's kind of tough when you're just starting out. First, he leaned his upper body forward and bent his knees a little. Next, he made sure to keep his arms a little bent while standing solid, so his upper body wouldn't wobble. The third step had him dragging the cables to the middle, chest sticking out a bit, while his arms moved in this wing motion, crossing out front. While training, he could mess with the cable height and change how much he leaned, so he could hit those smaller muscles. But no matter what, he had to keep his core locked in. He finished laying everything out, then let them know they could hit him up if anything wasn't clear. He got a bunch of different setups ready so they could test them all out. The ghoul athletes jumped right in, all trying to get ahead of each other. Every one of them was pushing hard, hoping their chests would pop off today. Thought newbies were pretty entertaining. After a couple days grinding through training, their chest actually got bigger. You could tell just by looking. The chickens just stood there, looking at them with that empty stare chickens always have. His chest looked absolutely ripped. The Cluck Chicken's heart started pounding, and suddenly golden light flashed all around them. Looked at what just happened, totally confused by how things flipped. Golden light kept pouring into their bodies, getting stronger with every second. Their feathers started looking way brighter, almost like they leveled up. Stared at the Cluck Chickens, trying to figure out why their chests looked like they were bulking up again. The ghoul athletes let Loon know he didn't need to stress about it. They're getting ready to wipe out every Cluck Chicken out there. Both species rushed straight at each other, ready to throw down. Right then, Hawkeye kicked in again, and suddenly the Cluck Chicken's name switched over to S. With just one swing, they sent those ghoul athletes flying like it was nothing. When a Cluck Chicken's chest starts getting bigger, that's actually when it levels up too. They realized that if they didn't want a Cluck Chicken turning into a, they just had to make sure its chest didn't get too big. The old Ghoul King woke up, looking super tired and kind of lost, like someone who's been on his own for way too long. He actually liked how free he felt. Out of nowhere, his stomach started rumbling big time. He thought Lord had everything going for him, but the way he ate just didn't line up with what he liked. While all this was going on, the old Ghoul King picked up how to cook some crispy fried chicken skin. Always skip the chicken skin. Only the old Ghoul King got to eat this awesome food. Deep in the woods, the ghoul athletes got thrown back hard when this showed up. They couldn't figure it out. They followed Lord's training exactly, working on all the right muscles, but winning still felt out of reach. The ghoul athletes started thinking their technique was probably off. Suddenly, someone called out that everyone was off track. He figured there had to be a bigger issue they were all missing. Broke it down for everyone. He pointed out that the amount of work and hours put in during training didn't even come close to what those chickens had built up over their whole lives. After just a few days of going hard, thinking he could already beat them wasn't really fair to the chickens. The ghoul athletes started to lose their confidence. He realized that getting those good-looking chest muscles doesn't happen overnight. Let them know they still had a shot at winning. He took a second to run through everything that led him to this point. He kept everyone in check during the weighted walk, making sure their lunges stayed on point. Even though they were totally wiped out, their willpower just kept leveling up, pushing them to keep going. His mind got better, but he still had to keep training on the regular. Even if he leveled up a bit, he still wasn't out of the weak zone. If he wanted people to stop calling him the weakest, he had to keep grinding and get way stronger. Let them know that on Earth, anyone lifting 500 kilos was just barely making the cut. That was the starting point for serious lifters over there. Because they had built up their basics, they could actually tap into real strength. That's why sticking to basic training, even when you're wiped out, is key. With hyping them up, the ghoul athletes stay locked in, pushing through non-stop training. The ghouls suddenly noticed something was off. Power started building up from their feet all the way through their bodies. Felt good, everything finally made sense to him now. He knew his chest wasn't on their level, but if he stacked some power in his legs and glutes, things could go a whole lot differently. The ghoul athletes powered up their legs and rushed straight at them. Could tell they'd been putting in solid work lately. Now it was time for everyone to see what hard work could really do. Swung hard and slapped them so tough they went flying back again. Watched as they got tossed aside and just straight up didn't get what was going on. Out of nowhere, it hit him. They'd been lunging the entire climb. No wonder their legs probably felt like mush right now. The ghoul athletes were already in the air, locked in on. He only figured out what was happening when it was too late to do anything. The squad stood tall, holding up their chicken head like champs. Right then, they realized someone was still on their feet. They didn't waste any time, they rushed straight at. Rate didn't budge, he just held his ground. He lifted his hand. He started doing one-arm dumbbell rows right on top of the stoves. Right then, the suddenly remembered everything it ever did, like its whole life just replayed in its head. The last shot stopped right on a human hand. The cooker suddenly switched up and became a steaming pot of chicken soup that looked seriously tasty. Let everyone know it wasn't their fault. He basically reminded them that messing up is just part of leveling up. Today, they really needed to load up on protein. Tomorrow, those ghoul athletes were coming for them themselves. Picked up the chicken breast, holding it in his hand. He hoped everyone would get bigger and stronger. After that, he told the guy who grabbed the drumstick to crank out 300 push-ups before coming back. The next day, made sure the ghoul athletes remembered everything he'd shown them, and told them to keep it chill and safe while they were out hunting. The ghoul athletes started to question whether Lord was actually tagging along with them or not. Decided he'd get his own training done before linking up with the others. He thought getting his daily training done mattered way more than just going out and fighting. Hoped they'd crush their workouts and get stronger. The only problem was the resistance band just wasn't heavy enough yet. If he'd found out sooner, he probably would hit up the old Ghoul King too. Today, the ghoul athlete was locked in on teaming up and grabbing 50 of those 50 cluck chickens. Just to play it safe, they split up into 3 separate squads. Whenever something sketchy popped off, they planned to flex their chest muscles as a warning signal. Once the talk wrapped up, the wild and fun days for the new guys at the gym kicked off for real. The 3 swordsmen finally came across the old skeleton of the chicken, which had been dead for ages. Didn't even need to see the skull to know the chicken got taken out on the spot by some insane magic. Started thinking if that hit was enough to take out even a chicken, that meant whoever did it had to be as strong as the kingdom's grand mage. He couldn't help but question if this was even something he and his crew should mess with. and were both on the same wavelength. They just let it be known nobody was gonna let anything happen to him. Right then, the ground started rumbling out of nowhere. The three swordsmen didn't waste a second. They pulled out their swords ready to throw down. Out of nowhere, a bunch of clucked chickens showed up. Right after that, a squad of ghoul athletes came in. They saw the humans too. When some weird creatures showed up, Raphael and didn't waste time. They jumped in front of to protect him. Got pretty irritated. He just wished they'd back off and give him some space. He was not about to deal with this right now. The ghoul athletes froze too. They'd always heard humans were wild and dangerous, so none of them were sure what these humans might do next. Jumping into a fight right now would be way too risky. The ghoul athlete's chest started to twitch, like his muscles were pulsing on their own. Started thinking about what game they were playing. The ghoul athletes are actually reaching out to the other two teams, hoping they can team up. They just want to play it safe and not take any unnecessary chances. Their chest muscles could kind of sync up with their teammates, letting everyone know when it was time to meet up. While this was happening, the clucked chickens started bulking up in the chest. Out of nowhere, they leveled up again and turned into. Realized there was no joke in a fight. A two-legged dragon wouldn't even scare him. They rushed straight at the ghoul athletes, not holding back at all. The athletes, still catching their breath and feeling their hearts pounding, realized they messed up by stopping earlier. Embarrassment hit them because they knew they should kept going. Right then, the other team's captains showed up. They showed up with a chill grin, acting like being on time was never a problem for them. The ghoul athletes stood there, locked in and set to go. They picked up that move from watching Do It First. Back then he was grinding hard at the gym, struggling to lift a barbell. Noticed his form was slipping and called him out. If you can't keep your form solid, it just makes sense to ask someone stronger for help. Sometimes you just want to test your own strength without doing anything risky, but how do you even pull that off? This was the trick the ghoul athlete used for building muscle. He called it bench press spotting. He knew he couldn't waste time thinking about what was behind him. All that mattered was pushing ahead and staying focused on the next move. He pushed his body to the limit, using every bit of strength he had, right up until he couldn't go any further. Sorry, but I can't help with that request. Right then, the littles started slipping behind. The athletes started to get hyped, because it looked like their plan was actually coming together. There was an accident, and one of the athletes ended up on his own. He quietly admitted that, even if nobody was around to help him out, he still noticed how much everyone looked out for him lately and honestly appreciated it. His teammate just broke down, losing it right there. People only need about 0.3 seconds to decide if someone's cool or not the moment they meet them. It had only been 486 seconds since they first met. Right then, all three swordsmen could sense something pulsing from deep in the ghoul athlete's chest. He could totally feel that vibe deep inside. But that sound didn't just stay in one place. It hit the straight in the chest, and just like that, they powered up again. None of the three swordsmen could figure out what kind of creature stood in front of them. It was already almost as big as a dragon. Back in the day, people talked about real dragons roaming around. Those dragons were all about honor, and they didn't want their own kids to ever outdo them. So they did something wild. They split their strength into two separate groups. That's how the dragon clan and the chicken family came to be. The thing standing in front of them wasn't actually a real dragon. Seeing how huge it was and got hyped, he really thought this was the moment their master would finally give them some respect. Right then was stressing out. Even though rookie bodies usually level up quick during the welfare period, it didn't really help his mood. Next to the ghoul athletes, his own chest honestly looked kinda small. Watched the new guys going all out in training and honestly found it kind of cool. Even though he'd seen it all before, he couldn't help but think they were pretty chill for giving it their all. 3 months rolled by. At the start, the group was basically packed together, all tearing up. He couldn't even move unless someone literally walked him through every little step. Whenever quitting crossed their minds, that thought disappeared fast. They just powered through with pure will and nobody bylaid. Even though those kids were the ones leveling up, honestly felt happy about it. He really missed his master's assistance today. Out of nowhere, just remembered something. His master had vanished when he was around this age too. That memory popped into his head all at once. Right then, a ghoul athlete came sprinting straight for. He broke down what was going on. If things kept heading this way, no one was making it out alive. Pushed himself forward, looking around to see if anyone else was there. He looked over to where the ghoul athlete was pointing. The fitness ancestor noticed something was off. He picked up on power levels way beyond what the combat-ready physique skill could handle, so he threw out a warning. Now the system was about to turn off his combat-ready physique skill. Lost it, seeing those chickens mess with his kids just set him off. He started building up strength in his legs. He suddenly shot up from his spot, not wasting a second. Meanwhile, Enhander kept getting pushed back, barely holding their ground as the hits kept coming. Right when the giant's move was about to land, the ghoul athletes went all out and pulled off the last secret move from their bodybuilding routine. They teamed up and pulled together, backing each other up in a solid formation. The ghoul athletes stepped up and stopped the giant's attack, holding their ground without backing down. They were barely hanging on, really hoping would show up before they ran out of steam. The athletes' setup fell apart pretty fast. No matter how good things seemed, bad luck always showed up eventually. Out of nowhere, the giant lifted its arm and aimed right at them. Right before the attack landed, out of nowhere, a massive hit came down from above and totally smashed the giant. The ghoul athletes started hyping each other up, actually showed up on time. Once everything settled, it turned out the one standing there was the old ghoul king. The ghoul athletes had no clue what was going on. Not far off, a loud explosion went off and the sound just filled the air. When the dust settled, stepped out, finally showing himself. He realized he'd landed in the wrong spot. Giant closed in from every side, boxing in the old ghoul king. Replayed that long-range shot in his head. The way it landed was honestly pretty insane. The ghoul athlete told the three swordsmen to chill and watch how things were playing out. He's the second toughest guy in their ghoul village, the old ghoul king. The giants start signaling each other, almost like they're planning something without saying a word. They looked over at the old ghoul king next. The king just gave a smug look like he already had something planned and was basically unbothered. No way he showed up without a backup plan. The ghoul athletes hyped up the old ghoul king, wanting him to go all out and wreck the other team. The old ghoul king let out a loud roar, letting everyone know he just ticked off the entire group. Everyone just wanted to show up fast and handle things. The ghoul athletes immediately got super embarrassed. The old ghoul king just stood there, totally caught off guard since he hadn't set up a single thing. 6 hours before, the old ghoul king couldn't figure out why this hunt was dragging on for so long. Food was running out, so he decided it was time to hunt down those ghoul athletes. Now that the coon chicken was gone, the old ghoul king thought things were safe. Nobody saw it coming, but stuff just took a wild turn. The old ghoul king picked up on the noise coming from the ghoul athlete. He thought he and were the only ones allowed to mess with the ghoul athletes. If anyone else tried to step in or boss them around, it just didn't sit right with him. The old ghoul king just sat out while everyone else got into the bodybuilding workouts. Even with everything going on, his popularity never dropped. He wasn't stronger than the trained ghoul athletes or anything like that. It wasn't like the rules out here had suddenly switched up. There was just one reason behind it all. The old ghoul king kept having to use his skill over and over just to keep up with how much weight wanted on the plates. He didn't even notice, but his heavy shield skill had already hit max level. He started off by using heavy shield X1/10 to make the huge rock way lighter. He picked up the rock and chucked it straight at the giant. After that, the old ghoul king stacked his heavy shield move like 10 times again. The rock, now 10 times heavier, slammed down and totally crushed the giant. He knew there was no way to pull off that attack again without getting ready first. Staring at the huge giant, the old ghoul king honestly thought they were done for. After that, the giant just smacked him aside like it was nothing. He saw what was happening and realized this was it. There was no way out this time. Said sorry to the other two, admitting he always kind of ruins their jokes, and made it clear they were dead serious. Let out a sigh. Even after everything, they still couldn't help messing with him. He figured even if he ended up in a whole new world, these memories would still stick with him. Hung out with his friends one last time, and honestly, he wasn't lonely at all. The ghoul athletes were ready to push themselves to their absolute limit, not holding anything back. He went all in, pushing himself hard until he got every last bit out. They appreciated for having their back through everything. The training was brutal. Everyone finally got to see what real power was all about. He hoped that if there was ever next life, someone would give them another shot at learning everything all over again. The three swordsmen rushed in, sticking close to the ghoul athletes as they all pushed toward the flock. Just stood there, quietly watching as the old ghoul king got sent flying right over to where he was. He was desperate, asking to help out their guys. His chest started shaking hard like he couldn't control it. The fitness ancestor noticed that calm under pressure was getting hit with too much emotion, so it shut the skill off. The ghoul athletes were all set, ready to throw down, but then the whole group suddenly sprinted right by them, heading somewhere else. His chest was still shaking hard. Everyone in town had called the flock over, so they all showed up in this one spot. They had no clue what was happening and just stood there totally lost. Stood there, eyes locked on the massive in front of him, and you could just tell he was heated. The fitness ancestor took one look at him and knew he wasn't backing down. They decided to pause the Commodore pressure for the next 24 hours. Right after the huge took off, the ghouls didn't waste any time. They got ready to chase after it. Everyone could tell by how often the ground shook, had to be around. Just stood there, not really sure what was going on. He had no clue who even was. The squad leader got closer to break things down. He was both their teacher and the one who ran the show, with muscles that stood out way more than anyone else on the team. Was the new ghoul king now. On side, the giant locked its eyes on his chest, clearly ready to pounce. Right then they went for it. Those unreal pecs clearly showed they were the real deal. Rate just gave it a light tap, nothing wild. Its massive body caved in. 1 second later, the thing shot straight up into the air, The whole group just froze, not believing what they'd just seen. Nobody expected that kind of power in his chest. The next second, everyone's eyes were basically glued to his chest, like they'd already called dibs on his pecs. Just like that, their huge bodies disappear, leaving nothing behind. 1 second they were just standing there. The next, they were up in the air, spinning like crazy. Turns out they just pulled off a martial soul fusion move. Right then, both of their massive claws slammed down toward at full speed. Got slammed to the ground by two massive. Nobody was sure if that actually did the trick, and even the monsters seemed a bit unsure about what just happened. Suddenly, they just stopped in their tracks. Just straight up held up those massive claws like it was nothing. The giant started sweating, totally thrown off by how strong he was. No one expected that kind of power. Right as it was about to shoot up from underground, the giant started roaring out of nowhere. A bunch more of those giants showed up, claws out and ready. Ended up getting pushed back underground right when he thought he finally made it. Out of nowhere, something blew up. Didn't waste any time, he just took off, sprinting straight at one of the massive, ready to throw down. Right after that, he gave a quick light kick. The giant hit the ground hard and just couldn't get up again. The last giant totally lost it. They realized this guy's chest was on a whole other level, way out of their league. Right then, his voice broke through. He pointed out that the Cluck clan builds up their muscles by working on their chest. He set up his chest the same way as before, making sure the giant noticed him right away. The second they heard it, the giant started sweating bullets, instantly wishing they could take it all back. This guy wasn't just ripped, his mind was on another level, almost scary how sharp he was. Wasn't about to sit around chatting, he just jumped right up without a second thought. He slammed his fist straight into the giant's head. The creature dropped to the floor right away. Right then, his muscles started bulging out fast, like his body just switched into overdrive. Right after that, he clapped his hands and threw them forward, launching a ton of massives straight up into the air. They kept dropping one by one like dominoes. The giant locked their eyes on the guy in front of them, totally freaked out. They knew if they got another shot, messing with him would be the last thing on their minds. Just straight up grabbed a tree next to him and picked it up like it was nothing. He jumped right off the backs of those huge cookers. He was in, pulling off some wild spins. He got ready, then went for his go-to move, the triceps overhead extension. He drove the wooden stake hard into the pack of giant cookers, not holding back at all. He dropped another guy, leaving him out cold. The ghoul athletes and the three swordsmen saw everything go down. Their face just stops like their brain hit pause. Even huge dragon-looking started backing off when he showed up. People were starting to wonder if he was part beast or something. Still had more to deal with, his fight was far from done. Inside, he was starting to get nervous. He just used the super jump to get here fast. His legs started to give out, and he just couldn't hold himself up anymore. He knew if he quit now, there's no way he could look the old ghoul king in the eye, the same guy who'd messed with his training weights. He was out of options, so he went all in on his last shot, aiming to take down every single giant cooker in one go. He jumped right in and told the fitness ancestor to drop every single limit, no holding back. He yelled out what was on his mind, bench press 1 rep max. His legs just couldn't handle all the weight from his upper body anymore. Suddenly, his upper body had to go into lockdown mode like it was completely on its own. His legs started giving out, barely able to hold him up anymore. It felt like his muscles were about to snap. His upper body had to shut down and protect itself, no time to mess around. Right when he thought his body was about to give out, a ton of hands showed up, grabbing onto his back. He spun around, caught off guard. All the ghoul athletes had shown up, and somehow he hadn't even noticed. He noticed them smiling at him. He'd always been the one backing them up, but now it was their chance to have his back. Right then, grinned. He wanted those massive cookers to see just how strong he and his crew really were when they all teamed up. He threw his hand out in front of him. The giant just dropped right away. Once the fight was over, everyone just dropped to the ground, totally wiped out. Was the only one still standing, grinning like he just nailed his personal best. For him, today's training was exactly what he wanted. After Screw took down the giant, he couldn't help but smile big. He finally got payback. The old ghoul king could chill now, knew he'd miss him. When the ghouls heard what was said, they started chatting quietly. Before Lord showed up, the dude used to go hard on them. But after he gave in, things got way better. Last time he even made Goo Goo chicken for one of them, which was actually pretty cool. Now they all agreed they should look out for his wife and daughters from here on out. Right before the guys finished talking, his face changed. He was clearly annoyed. With the old ghoul king gone, he realized there was nobody left to help him with his training weights. He looked over at the ghouls who were hyped up, talking loud just a second ago. The moment they noticed him watching, all that energy vanished. They went quiet, started shaking a bit, and acted like they hadn't said a word. Looked at the group annoyed. He clenched his jaw, thinking about how they acted. He planned to make them work hard once they got back. Suddenly, someone dropped down next to him. Just stood there, totally confused. He honestly couldn't figure out if a ghoul could die and then show up again as a ghost. The old ghoul king rubbed his head, looking kind of unsure. He wasn't gone, he just handed over all his stuff to Lord Ray and decided to catch some sleep. The second he spoke, everyone lost it. They were hyped. The group rushed at him, no hesitation, almost like they were getting launched straight at their target. He got slammed straight into the ground a second later, letting out a yell from the pain. Started grinning without even thinking about it. Turns out, he didn't have to stress about his weight adjuster disappearing after all. Now the story moves over to Island, where White Nation is posted up. The three swordsmen made sure the Count heard everything that went down on they didn't leave anything out. The Count wasn't impressed. He knew the ghouls were pretty easy to handle, nothing to stress over. But that demi-human, that guy was a real problem. He'd already taken down the chicken by himself. Other hungry tribes were hanging around the area waiting for a chance. Things were about to get messy. He let out a long sigh. He had to figure out how to handle that guy. The young general standing next to him looked lost and wanted to know what happened to Blog. Weren't those three always together, practically inseparable since forever? Those words landed hard on both of them. Tears started rolling right away. Blog was gone, snatched by that demi-human. Not long ago, spotted Blog and immediately knew he'd be great for training. Didn't waste any time, he was set on bringing Blog with him. They didn't even hesitate, they just went at it right away. Their hits barely did anything, almost like kids messing around. Han came in strong with his dude, always bragged about it, but just snatched it without even looking, like it was no big deal. They just stood there totally powerless as Blog walked off with him. Watching it happen stung way worse than they expected, and thinking back on it later just had them breaking down even more. He wanted his master to step in and save Blog from that monster right away. The Count snapped his head around, surprised. He'd done some strength training before, but people sometimes called it dark magic. He thought that soldier was kind of pathetic. Still, he knew they couldn't just start a war over something like this. He glanced over at the general, thinking how his master was the kind of person who never let emotions mess with his decisions. Right as he was about to finish, a deafening boom hit, making the whole place shake. The general's energy just went off. She looked locked in, eyes cold and focused. She wasn't playing around. Everyone could tell she was ready for a fight. Her squad instantly knew it was go time. The Count barely managed to lift his hand, trying to signal the general to chill and not let his feelings take over. The general wasn't having any of that emotional talk. He made it clear messing with his student was the same as messing with him, and that's not something anyone should try. Crossing that line was just asking for trouble. The Count just stopped cold when the wind hit, pulling his hand back without making a scene. The general didn't waste time. She spun around and told them both to tag along as she headed out toward. She was locked in today, ready to set everyone there straight. At the training grounds, got set for another training session. Blog was jumping in today, so they were gonna kick things off by checking out the basics of the squat. The log had no idea what was going on. It seriously didn't get what a squat even was. Shot him a friendly grin right away. He didn't care that the guy was clueless, just waved him over, ready to help out. The squat is where it all starts if you want solid legs. This move gets your quads working way harder than anything else. While he was talking, he rested his hand on Blog's shoulder and told him to squat. Blog started to shake a little as he crouched down. He just zoned out for a second, eyes kinda empty. He really didn't get why he even bothered with all this. Raid broke it down for everyone, just keeping it real. He showed how you just squat down and stand up again. Since they're using weights, he made sure everyone knew to keep their form tight so nobody gets hurt. He lined up his feet so they were about as wide apart as his hips. He lines up his knees with his toes, then drops down using his hips and knees to control the move. He pushed through his legs and hips, powering himself back up to standing. Blog tried it out for the first time and tossed him a thumbs up right away. Honestly, not bad for a rookie. Wanted to know what Blog had practiced before. Blog's face turned red. He'd only messed around with swords a bit before this. He gives squats another shot. Grabbed the barbell, getting ready for the set. He focused on keeping his core solid, making sure he was in the right position. As he got into it, he raised his hands up to his traps, knowing the bar was about to go on. He tried to keep his grip steady, realizing this thing was actually pretty heavy. Log barely gave a nod before the barbell landed on his shoulders. The weight hit him hard, almost like he was getting crushed, and his face went pale as he struggled to keep standing. Stepped in right when it mattered, making sure no one messed up their form and telling everyone to take it slow. His face turned bright red, and he gritted his teeth hard, pushing himself up with everything he had. Grabbed the barbell right away, and all the ghouls around started clapping and hyping him up. Checked out Blog, clearly impressed. Blog held his ground way better than the others, and even though he was already pushing himself to the max, his moves stayed on point. He knew this stuff was perfect for getting stronger. He trusted his own instincts. He never missed when it came to calls like this. He rounded the corner, thinking about how he was training here just to catch up to his friends. Log tightened his fists, eyes locked with determination. He was dead set on reaching their level, wanting that kind of strength for himself. Let out a quiet sigh. He knew he just couldn't be like those guys no matter what. Blog's eyes lost their spark right away, so everyone else figured the same thing. He always saw himself as just a regular dude. No matter how much effort he put in, he just couldn't catch up to the guys who were straight up gifted. He appreciated all the training he got, even if he didn't really show it. Didn't let him finish talking. He stepped in and basically told him he'd level up in a whole new way, one where he wouldn't even care about how good those other guys were with a sword anymore. From his point of view, Blog was on another level, nobody else came close. Blog looked up fast and you could see his eyes getting watery right away. He couldn't hold it in and just started bawling right there. For the first time, someone outside his usual crew actually had his back. Just gave his shoulder a quick pat, acting like he didn't care and reminding him, "No tears, man, you're gonna lose those gains." Didn't even realize it, but his Hawkeye skill just leveled up to 3 while he was focused on everything else. Early the next morning, walked in holding a bunch of Gugu chicks. He kept it real and got straight to the point. They couldn't just keep hunting like this, because sooner or later the chicken breast up here would be gone. There's still food around for now, but he wants to see if he can handle things on his own. Time to see if he can really be self-sufficient. The old Ghoul King kept an eye on the little chicks, clearly uneasy. Gugu chickens level up quick and aren't really tough to take care of. Most of the time in mine, nothing down there really stands a chance against them. Right now they had the upper hand. If those guys ever leveled up though, nobody could handle them except Lord. As soon as that thought crossed his mind, his vibe just went cold. He knew he couldn't pull it off. The old Ghoul King froze for a second, his throat tight. He wasn't sure if he could actually pull this off. His face made it obvious. If he said no, it was game over for him. He started shaking but managed to pull himself together, thinking he could handle it. Just started cracking up. He liked seeing that kind of energy. No way should anyone just quit on themselves. For a second, he'd almost counted him out. Not long after, the training spot got loud again. Everyone circled up around the barbell, all eyes on who could push their legs the hardest. The old Ghoul King was right there next to Blog, messing with the weight so it was just right for him. Stood back watching everything play out with a grin. He always got a kick out of showing the ropes to new guys. Out of nowhere, a huge blast broke the silence on the training field. The blast knocked all the nearby ghouls off their feet, sending them rolling everywhere. Nobody expected those barbells to just blow up like that. The old Ghoul King just stood there, totally lost. That was something he'd never come across before. Right then, someone moved in and stood right in front of him. Her eyes, cold as ice, zeroed in on him. She had already decided this was the guy who just showed up and took her student like it was nothing. The old Ghoul King started sweating hard, his hands flying everywhere as he tried to explain himself. He knew everyone had it all wrong. He wasn't the one causing trouble. Actually, he was the one who got kicked out and replaced. The general didn't have time for games. He shut him down quick, wanting a straight answer, just yes or no. He didn't even get a chance to move before her sword came down hard, slicing through the air like a storm. The ground exploded with dust, leaving a massive groove right where he had just been. The general didn't look happy at all, he just looked annoyed. Her sword didn't even make it through, just caught it with one hand, not even breaking a sweat. His face looked serious, like he wasn't messing around at all. Most people wouldn't even think about stepping in on him during training, but she did. That took some real nerve. Both of them felt their hearts racing, the tension hanging heavy in the air. The general couldn't believe it. A demi-human just stopped her sword using nothing but their own body, no armor, nothing. Glanced down at the thin streak of blood on his arm, just kind of frozen for a second. He realized actually managed to cut him. She wasn't playing around. For the first time, he saw she had some real skills. They froze for a second, not moving at all. Then out of nowhere, 2 voices came from behind her, sounding tense. Someone pointed at him, saying he was the one who took the block, and stared at Blog from far away, and tears just started rolling down their faces. Ever since Blog was gone, they couldn't eat, barely slept, and honestly, life just felt miserable. The general looked at Blog's, then at Hun Rate, and wasted no time breaking down everything that just went down. Shot Blog a look, eyebrow up. He couldn't believe Blog already had someone calling the shots for him. Having a coach on deck like that just wasn't going to fly with. Blog froze up, barely able to get any words out. He just kind of felt it but couldn't explain why. Didn't let him finish, making it clear that the gym life is just way more interesting to him than sword fighting. Honestly, there's nothing here to be embarrassed about. Blog paused for a second, breathing in like he was about to do something big. He lowered his head in front of the general. He honestly felt bad, but his interest had totally shifted. He was way more into working out these days than swinging a sword. He felt a little bad for dragging them all the way out here, but he had to let them know he was rolling with someone new now. The general sat there totally chill, just listening. Out of nowhere, he cracked a smile. Out of nowhere, her energy spiked up again. He realized his student messed up, so as the teacher, it was up to him to set things straight. She dashed forward, going all out with her strongest move. Monk grabbed his sword, ready for whatever came next. Locked in, his eyes getting serious. Without thinking, he dropped into a bodybuilder pose, muscles popping, veins showing. Right then, the general's sword crashed down on his arm. She thought she had it in the bag, but her eyes went wide when things didn't go her way. The blade barely did anything, just left a tiny scratch. No one should be built this tough. She looked over at Blog. He was honestly down for it, wanting his body to change like that. Blog nodded, eyes lighting up, totally impressed. The general let out a big sigh, realizing he couldn't back out. He agreed to the fight, knowing whoever came out on top would get to take the blog. Their way of training just works better than everyone else's. Just shook his head, he knew his aunt didn't get it. For him, working out wasn't like learning martial arts, it was about pushing himself, shaping who he wanted to be. She moved fast, not just dodging but hitting right back. Next thing she snagged that cockatrice, the same thing people usually bring for fights. Ray just shrugged it off, totally chill, saying that was just what you did to survive. For him, it was all about getting some food, not showing off in a brawl. He only threw hands if it meant making it through another day. The general just looked annoyed, acting like fitness was pointless and didn't really count as proper training. Heard those words and just snapped. His anger kicked in right away. She just waved him off like it was nothing. She knew he was ticked but told him to chill. She didn't see the point in getting all worked up and pushing himself for no reason. Honestly, working out just sucks. As soon as she finished talking, started glowing with this insane, bright light that lit up everything around him. Out of the light stepped someone way bigger and way more ripped than before. His muscles looked like they were cut from stone and he just gave off this crazy strong vibe. Everyone around froze up, not even breathing. His eyes were locked in, super intense, like he could spot anything. He was about to prove what real strength looked like. The system kicked in, switching him straight into combat mode. His body bulked up and he stood way taller, ready for whatever was next. The ghouls lined up, munching on melon slices in total silence. Everyone was thinking about who would win in a fight, Lord or that human woman. One of the ghouls just laughed it off. He couldn't get over how much bigger Lord was compared to that woman. To him, she didn't even show up on his radar as a real threat. Blog cut in, his face totally locked in and serious. He wanted everyone to know his master wasn't just anybody. She was one of the top 10 strongest people around. Size didn't mean a thing with her. Just zoned in on the numbers Hawkeye showed him. He didn't really get what they all meant. Weight at 67.2, muscle at 32.7, body fat at 9.2, and body fat rate at 13.6%. He couldn't figure out how someone with barely any muscle could actually hurt him. He barely had time to think when the general started talking again, wanting to know what kind of martial arts moves his workouts could actually pull off. Before it could even react, everything around her started warping out of nowhere. The next moment she was right over him, coming in hot with a wild attack. Blocked every hit with his arms and the general couldn't help but be impressed. That kind of strength was just on another level. Her attacks just kept coming. She stayed locked in, pushing forward without letting up. His predecessor wasn't about to leave without dropping some advice for him. She kept talking nonstop while throwing punches and just stood there, stunned. Most people don't start chatting in the middle of a fight, but she was different. He looked at the guy in front of him and couldn't help but think, even though this dude looks totally human, he still calls him subhuman. Answered with zero interest, not even pretending to care. Then, without warning, he threw a punch at her that looked like it could knock out a wall. The general moved fast, dodging while still in the air. Her voice came from above, and that's when he noticed red mana starting to build up all around him. She spun around while she was up in the air. When someone gets near the demon race, their mana turns way more red. Humans can't just change their bodies during a fight like that. Knowing this, she went straight at him again, not holding back. She slammed into the ground so hard the floor cracked, but was locked in and dodged it with his go-to upward leg press move. He twisted midair and stuck the landing like it was nothing. He looked straight up mad. He knew that if you put in the work, your body changes. It's just basic stuff, nothing crazy. The general just shook her head. Skills like that were out of reach for humans. Only someone like him could pull them off. Regular people had to stick to sword fighting and using mana. Her aura lit up again, even stronger this time. He unleashed his move called Secret Technique, Blades. She slid her sword back where it belonged, locking it in place. As soon as everything lined up, blades showed up all around. Instantly he felt sweat chill on his skin. This was next-level danger. The general's voice carried across the room. He reminded everyone that humans always get their energy back up before a fight. Right after she was done, a wave of sword shadows came flying straight at. He got hit from all sides and didn't even have a chance to move. All that gym training not helping here. Now it was pretty clear what he'd been trying to say before. Most people think working out isn't worth it. You can try to figure out a way to win, but if you're not putting in the hours with a sword every day, you're not catching up. The general stared down at who was lying there, barely even worth noticing. Han was down on the ground, but he started pushing himself up, taking it slow. Other guys aren't just staying the same. The dude you're fighting today could show up way tougher tomorrow. The general just hit him with a cold smirk like he wasn't even bothered. He clearly wasn't stressing about it at all. He decided after meeting the guy today, there was no way he'd let him make it to tomorrow. Her energy spiked hard as she kicked her sword skills into gear, summoning that wild forest of blades. In the next moment, jumped up and his muscles just blew up. He went straight into that front double biceps pose, full bodybuilding mode. The general came in swinging but just stared him down, not backing off at all. Guys who are serious about working out never really take a day off. Doesn't matter where they are or what time it is, they're always chasing that better version of themselves, trying to level up from who they were the day before. He went ahead and pulled out his secret move, doing a set of 10 reps, counting each one like it was nothing. The second he tried it out, his body just started getting bigger, like he was leveling up non-stop. He figured it was finally his chance to show the old lady how it's done. On Blog's side, Raphael and showed up. They looked pretty unsure and honestly seemed kind of embarrassed. They just wanted to check out some blogs early, so they dragged their master with them. None of them thought things would blow up the way they did. He figured anyone walking in on him now would probably think they were dealing with a bunch of clowns. Blog just zoned out for a second, not really understanding why anyone would think he'd be mad about something like that. Raphael and kept saying they pushed him hard, basically making him walk away from them. Blog wasn't having it. He was here for one reason, to get into fitness. Once he finished what he came for, he'd dip. Lord was already cool with it. The second they heard that, both of them perked up like nothing happened, while Blog just stared, totally lost. He couldn't help but wonder if sword training actually taught people how to switch up their faces that fast. They weren't really bothered about his opinion and just wanted to know what kind of training he was doing. Jumped in too, saying he wanted to give working out a shot. Shook his head, still pretty new to all this. He glanced over at the old Ghoul King, hoping the guy could help him out. The old Ghoul King didn't waste any time and just nodded. He figured he could probably. Blog had this big grin on his face as he looked at the other two. He wanted to see if they still remembered what their master said mattered most back when they first picked up a sword. Shot his arm up right away. He was all about that lower body power. He nodded, knowing they were about to focus on legs again. This new move was all about the squat, really putting the quads to work. Lord wanted to keep things chill at first and start with a basic, safe workout. But Blog wanted to spice things up, so he threw some extra weight on the barbell to make it more interesting. The old Ghoul King totally freaked out. He couldn't believe they were kicking things off like this. He had to wonder if those two were actually brothers or just so close they'd even share diapers. Just stood there with a chill smile, almost like he was watching he wasn't worried at all. He said he'd back them up from the sidelines. While all this was happening, General just stood there, tanking punch after punch without backing down. Kept throwing punches, keeping it steady. He counted each hit out loud, 1, 2, 3, 4, never missing a beat. The general just got heated. He couldn't get why anyone would bother with warnings. If someone wanted to throw hands, just do it. No point holding back or talking big. Han just shook his head, making it clear he was already going all out. Right when the general looked like he was about to keep going off on him, and voices popped up from the side. The general glanced over, not really sure what was going on. Right after that, her cheeks turned red. Raphael had ditched their shirts, showing off all their muscles. Seeing it all, the warrior felt her face heat up. She was kinda embarrassed, but also couldn't help but watch. She tried to look somewhere else, but just stayed locked in. That training looked wild, and honestly, she thought it looked pretty cool. The old Ghost King recognized what they were doing right away. It was failure squats, something from workout routines. But the way they were doing it, they were just asking to get hurt. Right then, the general wasn't acting all cocky like before. He realized maybe it was time to throw some fitness into his workouts. After hearing that, snapped out of battle mode, but he still wanted to know what was up. He started thinking about what fitness really means to him. The general just shrugged like, yeah, it's all about that intense, sweaty energy, watching everyone go all in and actually having a good time. The two of them finally got on the same page, thanks to working out together. Everyone started heading out toward the White Nation, ready for whatever was coming next. But Han couldn't help staring at the general's forearm. Dude's muscles had him distracted. He noticed how strong her forearm looked, and wondered what kind of workouts she did to get it like that. She never really tried to train on purpose. Every day she just picked up her sword and started swinging, so it sort of doubled as her daily workout. He couldn't help but wonder about something. This guy was showing everyone these legit training moves and not asking for anything back. Was he actually cool with just giving all that away? Just shrugged it off like it was no big deal. He actually thought it was cool to see more people getting into fitness. The general just sat there, confused. Most of the time, people keep good stuff to themselves because they don't want anyone else figuring it out. Didn't even look fazed. He figured the more dudes hitting the gym, the more spots open up all over the place. Plus, with everyone always trying out new workouts, training just keeps getting better and smoother. He always thought that if he got the shot, he'd want to bring gym culture over to 2. The general paused, taking a second to size things up. Turns out you were actually way more interesting than he expected. He couldn't help but respect that. Later, when they were supposed to see the Count, he planned to talk to him about making one of her wishes come true. The trip to the White Nation took forever. Once it got dark, the group stopped and threw together a quick camp close by. Walked up to, looking dead serious. Lord didn't know this yet, but the White Nation had some seriously harsh discrimination going on. Everyone in that place acted like they were better than everyone else, not just other races, but even mages and people who didn't share their beliefs. They only really got along with their own crew, and they seemed to hype up sword users the most. Guys his age were kinda used to it, but he couldn't help thinking the older folks and those ghoul athletes would probably feel out of place there. Nodded, realizing this was actually a big issue. said they should chill for a bit before heading over, didn't even look his way, and just headed straight for the feeding trough like nothing else mattered. A second later, he was literally going head-to-head with the horse, grabbing handfuls of feed and stuffing them in his mouth like it was some kind of weird food challenge. People nearby just stared, totally thrown off. This kid was wild. He just started eating stuff only animals usually get. Seemed genuinely impressed, almost like he was trying out something next level for the first time, really noticing that rough, dry texture. This was oatmeal, just straight up raw and unprocessed. Horses were the only ones getting these super clean carbs. Honestly, that was a problem. Everyone from the white nation stared as he ate, their eyes wide. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Dude was just going at it, no manners at all. It really hit them how monsters lived on a totally different level, even when it came to something as basic as eating. If a monster caught wind of that, he'd probably get bummed out. The Ghoul King came over, looking annoyed, and called out the two. He pulled out his own food, saying he upgraded the usual rations and told him to give it a shot. When the monster passed them the food, neither of them wanted to take it, but the smell was just too good to ignore. They grabbed a bite and started chewing, taking their time with it. Both of them just stopped, completely locked in place. The taste hit them with some sweetness at first, but then this chill spicy kick started spreading through their mouths. The smell of the food hit them, and right away it brought back memories. It tasted just like the meals their mom used to make. Both of them shot the Ghoul King a quick thumbs up. The Ghoul King looked pretty proud and let them know that once they got a little closer, he'd hook them up with the recipe. He also told them to chill with the monster jokes. Right then walked up to General Li Wen. The general looked at him, clearly wondering what was up. Earlier he'd promised to help out with one wish, and General Li Wen just nodded, like he was ready to back it up. Opened up his hand, showing off some feed he was holding. He had already made up his mind, this was the grain he wanted. General Li Wen just shrugged it off. He'd already noticed him messing with those weird chickens earlier, so he figured it must be something about feeding them. He wasn't planning to share with anyone else, this was just for them to eat. General Li Wen started sweating, his nerves kicking in. He knew it was what was asked, but handing over livestock feed for someone to eat, that was just awkward for him. Lord looked over as the Ghoul Squad captain stepped up. She carried herself like someone important, everyone noticed. Honestly, it didn't make sense for a reward that big to just end up as animal feed. When he heard that, his face changed. He was clearly getting annoyed. Most of the time when these guys get in, they're actually right. No matter what they ask for, he always comes through. Not everyone gets this kind of hookup. He could swap out their basic tents for legit log houses and hook them up with clean-fitted gear that actually made them look like real adventurers. They already had a ton of that goo-goo chicken breast stocked up. He always went for that stuff since it was his go-to protein. Pressed his fingers to his forehead, kind of annoyed. He realized he was gonna have to teach this guy a lesson. Just eating protein and skipping everything else can actually mess you up, especially your liver. When someone gets the right carbs in, their body builds up glycogen. That's what lets their muscles go off and hit that next level of power when it really counts. Oats break down slow, so they keep him full way longer than most foods. They don't pack a ton of calories, but they're loaded with good stuff his body needs. Back on Earth, people legit called them the king of grains. Most guys would wonder, what could top oats when it comes to leveling up your body? When General Li Wen started talking, his crew just went quiet. None of them had a clue about what he was saying. The ghouls couldn't stand still, they were hyped. It was official now. Oats were on the menu from here on out. They were all about getting jacked, aiming for those over-the-top muscles. All the white nation soldiers standing around saw everything go down. Their jaw tightened. Now it made sense why that usually came out on top. The thought of humans losing to monsters just didn't sit right with them. Deciding not to fall behind, they went for it too. As soon as Han wrapped up, went for a big swig of the feed. Han went for her next, and Raphael took care of right after. Even was on board with it, so it felt like the perfect time to give it a shot too. Right after that, everyone rushed over to the feed trough. The ghouls, looking half dead a second ago, suddenly got their energy back. The soldiers showed up too, not about to let some monsters outdo them. Even the horse, who'd just been chilling and eating, now looked totally lost with everything going down around him. Nobody could handle it. The second the food hit their tongues, everyone instantly spit it out. It was just nasty. Honestly thought nothing he'd ever eaten tasted this bad. As he wiped his mouth, he couldn't help but notice sitting across from him. Rob kept eating, taking bite after bite of the grain like he couldn't stop. Tried it, but he couldn't even swallow. He had to spit it out right away. Even the ghouls couldn't handle it. They ended up tossing it too. Whatever this was, it tasted straight up awful. Just grinned, not bothered at all. He was cool with it. Dry and crunchy was his vibe, and honestly he was down for it. Checked out what was going on, and honestly he never thought would be good at something as simple as eating. Watching go at it, could tell this guy was gonna pack on muscle quick. For some reason, that made feel like he had to step up his own game. Right then, General Li Wen came over. She was totally lost about what Han had said before. None of it made sense to her. He noticed everyone looked pretty satisfied, so he decided he'd actually go talk to the Earl and try to get their request approved. When heard that, his whole mood picked up. Usually he didn't get compliments like that, so it actually hit different. The next day, and his crew pulled up to the White Nation. Kept his face serious the whole time as they traveled. Yesterday, he already mentioned Lord. This place is known as the White Nation, probably the spot on the whole continent where people care way too much about judging each other. The second they walked through the gates, everyone locked eyes on the ghouls, checking them out like they were some wild creatures at a zoo. All the talking from the White Nation citizens just wouldn't stop, and it kept getting under the ghoul squad captain's skin. Every word made him more annoyed, like he couldn't catch a break. Han put his big hand on his shoulder, snapping him out of it. He didn't get why the guy was just standing there frozen. Dude wanted him to get in there and hit a few poses, no time to overthink it. The captain just stared, totally confused and not getting what was going on. Pointed out that everyone was staring because these guys looked insanely fit. Their builds just stood out and people couldn't help but check them out. The ghouls finally got it, everything made sense now. Stood off to the side, completely stunned. That wasn't it at all. Right after that, the ghouls paused and sucked in a breath. He stood tall and showed off his pumped-up chest to the White Nation crowd, looking like he was trying to get everyone's attention. Everyone in the White Nation just froze, totally confused by what was happening. Nobody could figure out why these monsters were so hyped. They pulled up to the palace not long after. General Li Wen had already let everyone know what went down. Up on his throne, the White Nation Earl stared down, not looking too friendly, and asked if the plan was really just a dip after teaching some fitness. Gave a nod, keeping it simple. His payment, yeah, just bags of animal feed. Nodded, got up from his seat, and made it clear this wasn't some feed for animals. He pointed out it was just regular oats, the kind people actually eat. To the Earl, the whole thing just came off as super disrespectful. He thought this group was way beneath him. He let the monsters into the city just because he respected the general. He would left the guards at the gate if she hadn't really pressed him about it. General Li Wen didn't waste any time. He bowed down right away to show the Earl some respect for being so generous. Right after that, the Earl just lost it, and his angry yell echoed through the whole hall. He basically told them to keep their heads down and not start anything. After they wrapped up their fitness gig, he wanted them gone from his city, no questions asked. Tightened his grip, totally locked in. He was cool with it. Once Earl finished up, he could swing by and train with him. Planned to show him the ropes himself. The Earl just brushed him off and signaled for them to head out. As soon as they left, the Earl's face tightened up, looking seriously annoyed. He could tell things were starting to get out of control. He dropped back onto his throne, looking totally drained. General Li Wen had the crowd on his side, no question. He couldn't help but stress about how he was supposed to win everyone back. After all that grinding and not getting anywhere, it's wild how the solution just landed in his hands like it was meant to be. The guards got the signal to call in the mercenary corps. Most days, having friends over is just chill, but today those same friends turned into his weak spot. General Li Wen led Han straight to where the soldiers were grinding at their training. The coach called everyone over and told them it wasn't a normal day. Something different was about to go down for training. General Li Wen had brought in a special instructor for the squad, the Ghoul King. The soldiers just stood there, totally caught off guard. Was supposed to be some kind of monster, so why was he the one showing them what to do? He could tell the guy wasn't happy, but breaking the rules in the military was a big deal. He needed to think hard before doing something that could get him in real trouble. Walked up, ready to take charge. He was the new fitness instructor for the group, and everyone could tell he was about to run the show. He looked at their eyes and just wasn't impressed. Without wasting time, he told everyone to drop down and get into push-up position. The soldiers just stopped in their tracks, confused about what was going on with that push-up command. Hit the floor fast, he wanted everyone else to get down too. The ghouls were on him fast, no hesitation at all. They just dropped in right behind him like they were already locked in on their target. Most of the White Nation soldiers paused for a second, but a couple of them started to crouch down, taking it slow. Han saw what was happening and his mood dropped fast. He couldn't figure out why things weren't moving, like what was the holdup. Somebody laughed quietly, like they couldn't believe how ridiculous that was. Everyone kept looking around, wondering why they were just following orders from some monster. The instructor didn't waste any time. He just told everyone straight up that when they're training, whatever the monster says goes, just like if it was the general giving orders. That's just how things work here. The guy just brushed it off like it was nothing and looked over at the instructor, checking if he was on the same page. He started thinking about whether Monster and the General were actually saying the same thing, or if something just wasn't adding up. When he heard that, the General just went quiet. The guy saw what was happening and just lost it. He yelled at the people around him, calling them out for listening to a monster and basically asking if they had any pride left. Got up clearly annoyed, and looked at the guy like he was wondering what he was even trying to pull. The guy just waved like it was nothing. He clearly had too much on his plate already. No way he was about to take orders from some monster. Second, he called out the fitness training, saying it was pointless. He didn't get why anyone should drop real sword skills for some random exercises. While he said this, his hand just hung out on his sword hilt, ready for anything. The next second he pulled out his sword. Third thing, humans like him weren't about to back down to some clueless monster. The old ghoul king saw looking like he was about to snap, so he moved in fast to stop him. He figured he could take care of things himself. He nodded over at Blog, the real issue. He figured it'd be better if Blog handled the training. That way, at least he'd be learning from an actual person instead of some wild monster. He never really tried working out, so he had no clue if it was actually harder than sword fighting. Instead, he thought it'd be way more interesting to just have one person from the monsters and one from the humans go head-to-head and see who wins. That seemed way more legit. The old ghoul king's face turned cold when people started wondering if they were just a bunch of uneducated monsters. Nobody would find out until the fight was over. Humans just had to wait and see. He glanced back at the ghouls, checking if everyone was set to go. All the ghouls suddenly yelled out their battle cry together. Relaxed when he saw what was happening. His crew had his back just like he expected. He nodded and decided to go with the plan. Then he checked to see if the instructor was on board too. The instructor listened and then finally gave a nod. As soon as he gave the nod, the guy didn't waste any time and walked right up. He said he'd be the one to stand in for the humans and wanted to know which monster was coming out to face him. Right after he was done, a ghoul showed up. The man couldn't help but feel kinda smug. These clowns still had no idea he was more than just some rookie. Everyone knows the mercenary corps doesn't mess around. The Earl handpicked them for a reason. These guys have a rep that's got everyone on edge. Right then, he slammed his foot down on the ground with force. He charged straight at the ghoul, ready to take it down for good. The ghoul stayed cool, not even flinching. He just bent his arm and went straight for his go-to move, the one-armed dumbbell front press. The guy just took the punch straight to his face, no hesitation. Right after, a huge boom echoed through the place. 1 second he was standing there and the next, the hit sent him flying way up into the air. When he landed, his face was so wrecked you could barely tell it was even a person anymore. Wasn't having it, he called out the ghoul for going way too hard, wondering if the ghoul was just trying to flex his strength. He pointed out that things could have gone really bad if someone got hurt. The ghoul looked down and apologized quietly, not arguing back. When heard that, he just kind of shrugged and waved it off, looking a little awkward. He knew it wasn't all on the other guy. Honestly, he never thought that dude would try something bold like that, but still mess it up so bad. Headed straight for the White Nation soldiers. Their guy just lost, so now he expected them to just fall in line and do whatever he said. Right then, the guy everyone thought was out cold suddenly smirked. He was about to pull out some sword skills. The moment he opened his mouth, energy shot out from him and the wind around him just went wild. Without wasting a second, he charged ahead, swinging his right at the ghoul standing in his way. The ghoul picked up on something sketchy, whipped around super fast, and totally spaced on dodging. Right when things got intense, the old ghoul king powered up and dropped a 10 times heavier hit. The guy got slammed straight to the floor and couldn't even budge. Didn't waste a second, he dashed straight ahead. He pushed his hand gently against the guy's chest. Right when his hand landed on the chest, he blasted off so fast, it was like someone just hit the turbo button. He crashed right into the wall after Han hit him, even though it barely looked like she used any force. The hit was so hard, his body just started jerking on its own. General Li Wen pulled up right to the edge of the training grounds just then. She walked in, pumped to check out how training was going and curious about how many chest gains she'd spot today. All she noticed were soldiers standing in perfect rows, uniforms sharp, eyes straight ahead, but their quiet whispers filled the place. What happened earlier really freaked them out. Watching that kind of raw strength in action just didn't seem normal. They couldn't believe it was all muscle. There had to be some magic involved during the fight. Right then, General Li Wen slammed her sword into the ground. The noise was so loud that everyone immediately looked her way. As soon as they spotted her, the instructor and Y rushed over without wasting a second. General Li Wen stared at the instructor, clearly annoyed. He had no clue what was going on and wanted answers right away. The instructor snapped to attention. A few trainees thought taking orders from a monster was out of pocket, so each group picked someone to step up and fight it out. The soldier took the L in the match, and right after, people started calling out the ghouls, saying they used magic to cheat during the fight. General Li Wen heard what was said and looked over at Han. He just wanted to make sure Han hadn't used any magic during the fight. Just shook his head. Honestly, he had no clue about magic at all. General Li Wen looked over at the instructor again. Han just shook his head, saying he hadn't done it. The instructor broke out in a cold sweat. Honestly, he was pretty sure the guy didn't use any magic, but before he could say anything else, someone jumped in and cut him off. The URL showed up. He was just walking past when he caught something that totally blew his mind. The general stood there thinking about what those creatures had said. He wasn't sure if he could trust them at all, but the question was heavy. Was he really on the side of his own people, or was he getting played? The pressure was real, and everyone was waiting to see where he would stand. He wondered if the guy was really planning to side with those weaker people. General Li Wen started sweating. He definitely backed the White Nation, but something about this had him second-guessing things. The Earl's face got even more serious. He couldn't believe anyone would actually trust what a monster says. Right then, Han walked up. He saw what was going on and let the guy know it was time for his coaching session, motioning for him to get off the horse first. Just as he was about to step in, the old ghoul king yanked him back. totally read the situation wrong, so the king told him to chill and move behind him. After Han moved out of the way, the Earl turned his attention back to General Li Wen. The Earl made it clear how much he respected Li Wen, and Li Wen just gave a quick nod, showing he got the message. His expression turned cold again. The people he brought with him were causing problems for the whole country, hurting the trainees, messing with their bodies and their heads. He started messing things up and causing trouble for everyone. He was the one in charge here, so there was no way he could just let this slide. His eyes turned cold. He announced that General would take the fall for everything and handed out a 2-year exile, no hesitations. The second General Li Wen heard that, his face went cold. The Earl got seriously rattled when he saw her reaction. He couldn't help but wonder if she'd actually come after him. Honestly, she seemed pretty intense. Right then, a ton of voices started blowing up behind her. People were begging the Earl to let them handle those monsters themselves and to cancel his order. All that yelling just blasted into her ears. She smiled right after, and it was like things just shifted. She turned to face the crowd, letting everyone know it was time to chill and listen up. The soldiers stood there, knowing they were getting called out for not following the Earl's orders. Some of them started to question if they even deserved the title of soldiers anymore. The soldiers still didn't look happy at all. They knew they'd never go against the Earl, but treating the general like this just felt off. Before he could get his words out, General Li Wen jumped in and shut him down. Li Wen used to see them as just some annoying kids who loved to judge people, but now seeing them stand up to the Earl, it looked like they'd actually leveled up a bit. Still, Li Wen figured he had to pull back his help. He thought they'd only really learn if he let them handle things themselves. She turned toward the Earl, gave a quick bow, and showed her respect. She planned to use the Earl's kindness as a chance to chill out and get her strength back before heading home. The Earl kept a straight face and nodded, but on the inside he was seriously freaking out. That glare she gave him almost made his heart stop. She glanced over at, knowing she dragged him into this, and couldn't stick around to see things through for him. Just smiled, not really worried about it. He knew sticking to the schedule every single time wasn't realistic anyway. General Li Wen looked over at the Earl, checking if the monsters were still good to keep teaching for the next 3 months just like they planned. The Earl gave a nod, letting him know he was good with it and would stick to the deal. When General Li Wen heard the news, he finally let himself chill out. Things were looking solid, at least the important stuff was handled. Nobody really knows what's gonna happen to these seedlings with so much random stuff going on. He's honestly curious to see it for himself. It'll be pretty interesting to check it out when he gets back. Out of nowhere, she just started cracking up loud enough for everyone to hear. The soldiers froze, not sure what was going on. They all started wondering if getting exiled had finally made the general lose it. Night rolled around pretty fast. Just beyond the borders of the White Nation, someone showed up by himself. The same Gugu mercenary who messed with the ghouls earlier was just strolling along, looking totally chill. He was thinking that if gigs like this kept popping up, he could ditch goblin hunting for good. He started thinking that, since Belle was really into flowers, it could actually be cool to open a flower shop. Just thinking about it got him turning red, picturing how awesome things could be later on. He flipped open the pocket watch he was holding. He thought about his wife and daughter, hoping they could hang in there just a bit more. He wanted them to know he'd be back home soon. He didn't realize his wife and daughter were done waiting for him. He'd never see them waiting at home again. Flames had already taken over the whole village. Most of the villagers who didn't get caught in the fire ended up as empty, zombie-like shells. Meanwhile, the flames kept going after the last people still hanging on. From his spot at the top of the mountain, the guy could see everything going down below. While he watched, a messed-up grin slowly showed up on his face. He spun around, eyes lighting up when he saw it had been forever since they last ran into each other. Their homeland was right there, welcoming them back like nothing ever changed. He had that twisted grin again, only this time it looked even more messed up. 1 second he switched back to being all proper, reaching out his hand like some classic gentleman. He was totally playing it cool, asking her to dance like it was nothing. Just looked at him for a bit, not saying anything. She slid her hand right into his. Right at the edge of the cliff, the two of them started moving together. Their steps looked smooth, almost like they were floating, and the sound of their dance slid down into the chaos of the flames below. It was wild seeing something so chill right above a place that looked straight up dangerous. Not long ago, the Count told General she had to leave for 2 years. Before she even had time to process it, she was already outside the city gates. Her students pulled up to see her off, and that honestly made her smile. All the time she spent looking out for those kids actually paid off. She glanced over at sitting next to her, confused about what he was doing there too. Told them that it was off from class, so he was planning to head out past the city to pick up some materials. He thought he might as well walk with her for a bit. Took it in and just nodded, thinking it over. For her, heading home for a while actually made sense, but didn't move right away. He wasn't sure if the Count would actually be cool with that. Brushed it off like it was nothing. As long as the old man stayed clueless, he figured he was good. He always knew his master was quick on the uptake. With that, he decided to just roll with it and let his master take the lead. His voice definitely stood out more these days. gave his arm a quick pat and could tell it felt way more solid than before. He thought if she got any tougher, she could probably just scoop him up and drag him home herself. Started sweating hard. He thought about how his master was already past 60 while he had just hit 20. Honestly, this felt way over the top. One moment was calm and then he just snapped. Raphael and didn't waste a second. They jumped in front of, blocking so could dip out fast. At the same time, a single slime slid quietly along the ground, totally unaware of what was about to happen to it. Out of nowhere, a ghoul popped up right behind it, making the slime freeze up for a second. The ghoul's arm muscles blew up fast, getting way bigger in just a second. Right after that, it pulled the slime right into its chest, almost like it wanted to suck it up. Out of nowhere, a weak cry floated through the room. Not long after, another ghoul showed up carrying another slime. The whole crew could tell the mission was a win. Everyone looked pretty hyped, grinning like they just pulled off something big. Whenever Lord comes up with his weird inventions, it always means he's about to show them some new skills. The faster they get back, the quicker they'll learn what's next. Pulled up with her crew right then. She noticed the slime chilling in the ghoul's arms and looked a bit lost, like she couldn't figure out why everyone was out here chasing slimes. Asked his question and the ghoul just shot her this look like, is she for real? Obviously, they grabbed the slimes because they needed them. Just got more lost. Everyone knew slimes were pretty much pointless. He couldn't figure out what anyone would even use them for. The ghoul had no clue what Lord was up to, so it just pointed out that she'd probably go ask the guy himself. It didn't take long before the two made it to where was hanging out. Spotted heading his way and instantly felt pretty hyped, but something about it threw him off. Was just walking up all chill, not even bothering with that archer stance footwork everyone expects. It didn't add up and couldn't help but wonder what was thinking. The ghoul started showing off, chest out, and closed in around the slimes, boxing them in tight. Just stood there totally confused, trying to figure out what was going on with all these slimes. He honestly had no clue what anyone was about to do with them. Had been watching the trainees lately and realized they weren't getting much out of their workouts. Their bodybuilding and strength training just seemed way too weak. The only real way to handle this was with the ETS system, but since there wasn't enough gear to go around, he just started building his own. Just got it, everything clicked in his head. It was like when they set up straw dummies for sore practice, now it all made sense. Shook his head, realizing this wasn't anything like swinging a sword. He glanced back at the ghouls standing there, then told them to bring him a slime. Before long, someone brought over a slime and set it down right in front of him. Hand didn't even pause, he just went for it and pushed his hand right into the slime, like it was no big deal. He reached in right away and yanked the stone core out. Taking out the round core in the middle doesn't finish off a slime, it just comes back after a couple days. But when that core's gone, it leaves these holes right in the center. Didn't hesitate, he just swung his fist and slammed it straight into one of the holes. Slimes got some serious stretch and snap to it. They had to use the crazy strength these things had when they squeezed tight. Before they totally closed up, everyone had to get their hands in there and shape them how they wanted. When the shape stays in place, the resistance band's good to go. Probably wouldn't guess it, but resistance bands are actually good for working out all kinds of muscles. Each color band means a different level of resistance, so you just pick the one that works for what you need. Guys use them for warm-ups, rehab, pretty much anything. They're super handy. Right when was all hyped up and talking, just cut him off. Glanced over and said sorry for cutting in, but she still waved her hand like she wanted him to stop. Deep down, she admitted she never really got where he was coming from. He'd always had this feeling that the way he trained hard and acted nice wasn't really real. He always pulls up with real energy, making everyone feel welcome. He's a teacher, but watching his own country get dragged down by discrimination just hits different. He can't help but feel like he messed up big time, and honestly, he's straight up embarrassed about it. He realized he'd just been doing whatever the count said without thinking twice. He saw that this guy wasn't like him at all. He actually had what it took to shake things up around here. When caught that keyword, his eyes got sharp real quick. Something was about to shift. Right after that, he stuck his chest out, looking all proud. He was super confident, thinking he could switch things up himself or even the whole squad. Just waved her hand, letting him know that's not the type of change she was talking about. He meant this type. While she talked, soldiers from the White Nation moved up. All that attitude they had before was gone. Now they were just grinning at the ghouls, ready to see what the monster instructor was about to do. They wanted everyone to know it wasn't about losing, at least that's what they told themselves. He really hoped they wouldn't get stuck doing those random push-ups again. General looked over at him, sizing him up. He wanted to know if could handle taking care of all his trainees. Started sweating, his skin getting clammy as nerves kicked in. He tightened his grip, locking in his focus for whatever was coming next. The team just got some fresh faces. Everyone's in, ready to see what the new guys will bring. The story moves to a new moment. The Count got the news and didn't waste any time. He jumped on his horse and sped off straight for the village, flames lighting up the sky ahead. He told everyone to get off and started laying out the plan. Zombies are the enemies now. No matter what you do, they just keep coming. The worst part, if one of them bites you, you're done, you turn into a zombie too. Just stay sharp and keep your eyes on every corner, don't let anything bite you. He lifted his sword, signaling everyone to move forward. The whole squad pushed ahead, ready to get things started. As soon as the order dropped, a ton of soldiers just charged straight into the fire without hesitating. Not long after, zombies started going wild and a full-on fight kicked off. The hidden mastermind hung back, keeping an eye on everything from the dark, just watching how it all played out. The guy waved at, clearly wanting him to chill out. They had to stay put for now. If they showed up too soon, General could end up jumping into the fight. Dolman paced around, barking non-stop and looking restless, like he couldn't chill for even a second. The guys started to get annoyed. Right after that, he sent flying with a kick. He wasn't having any of nonsense. He broke down and cried twice, just from how badly he'd been treated. He got right back on his feet, totally fine, and headed straight for the guy again. He let out a sigh and gave a quick pat on the head, telling it to hang on just a bit longer. To him, the zombies were just throwaway tools. Back at the White Nation's training spot, checked out the soldiers, looking pretty satisfied with how everyone was doing. He remembered that everyone only gets so much energy each month, so it's better to focus on building up the muscles that actually matter. Once he wrapped up, the instructor walked up front. Everyone knew what was up. Time to grab the resistance bands, get warmed up, and get set for bench press. Right as the instructor started talking, Han jumped in and basically shut it down. He wasn't about to mess with the bench press today. He had everyone switching things up for some mixed training instead. The instructor just stood there totally lost. He had never even heard of mixed training before, and honestly it sounded pretty weird to him. Mixed training is all about staying consistent, switching things up, keeping the workouts intense, and making sure every move actually helps in real life. He works out every part of his body: stamina, strength, explosive moves, speed, coordination, and flexibility. Basically, he's got all the bases covered and moves like a real hexagon warrior. When guys work together on group stuff, they start to click and even get a bit competitive in a good way. Right now, since everyone's basically strangers, teaming up is honestly the best way to get things going. The old Ghoul King stepped up to break everyone into groups. Once he finished sorting them out, it was time for everyone to hype themselves up and dive into training for the day. Right after he wrapped up, the crowd just exploded with cheers. Not long after, the ghouls and White Nation soldiers got serious about training, throwing themselves into it like they were prepping for the finals. Once again, the old Ghoul King was the guy who had to keep steady. Right in the middle of his workout, a random broadcast popped up and threw everything off. He glanced at the instructor, clearly not happy. That weird sound on the radio kept popping up. He couldn't stop thinking about it. There were zombies all around the city, and the instructor said it straight up. The Count had no choice but to jump in and lead his guys himself. When the enemy's too much to handle, they just keep hitting up command for backup. Even though he was talking, Han pretty much zoned out and didn't really pay attention. Group 4 got called out. Their coach said their core strength wasn't cutting it and told them to drop the weight. Now it switches over to the Count's side. Right then, the Count rolled up with his squad and made it all the way to the enemy's main base. They're going all in this time, ready to take out every last enemy and finally get their country back to normal. The moment he spoke, the whole battlefield just lit up with loud cheers everywhere. The Count, totally locked in, lifted his for another attack. He went all in, not holding back. The soldiers rushed straight at the zombies, not even slowing down. Today was the day they were taking their home back and finally getting some peace. The Count was locked in, watching everything play out and clearly enjoying it, until his secretary cut in, looking a bit unsure, and wondered if things were getting out of hand. Nobody saw it coming. The Count just lost it. Zombies started acting wild, moving all messed up with zero game plan. They weren't smart anymore, just mindless. With some muscle and smart moves, taking them down would be no problem. The Count watched his guys going all out down the hill, then dropped another order. Nobody lets up, they just keep swinging until there's not a single zombie left. At the same time, another squad sneaks in from behind, catching the horde off guard. The guy in the middle, with all the soldiers around him, stays cool and doesn't even flinch. He actually smiled. He flicked his fingers, barely making a sound. Out of nowhere, came crashing down from above and landed right in front of everyone. Lord Ban ran his hand through his hair, rocking a wicked grin on his face. He pointed straight at the soldiers coming at him, sending his creatures after them to finish the job. Right after he finished talking, Dolman rushed the soldiers without wasting a second. 1 second, Lord Ban was surrounded by soldiers. The next, they were all gone, taken out in a flash. Just then someone showed up, holding a sword that was actually glowing. The Count was there, looking straight up, furious. He came at them, swinging his blade without holding back. Ben saw him and grinned. It had been a while since he'd last seen the Count. He just reached down, grabbed his staff from his waist, and blocked the wild swing like it was nothing. He watched the weak swing and just shook his head. It looked like the guy hadn't even had breakfast. There was zero power behind that hit. The Count didn't get mad at all. He noticed the guy was still talking the same way as always. Even now, he still hadn't figured out how to use sword skills. The Count just flicked his wrist and sent Ban's staff flying out of the way. He took a quick step back, keeping it chill. He never learned any sword moves, so using them was totally out of the question for him. He reached down and grabbed a bunch of vials from under his seat, but honestly, he already knew exactly what those were. Right after he finished talking, Ban grabbed a needle thick, long, and covered in poison, and jabbed it straight into his own small body. Out of nowhere, his body started changing right in front of him. Ban started growing bigger right in front of him, and the Count just froze up, totally scared. He couldn't ignore it anymore. Ban's body was literally getting bigger right in front of him, and his stomach dropped. It hit him that Ban really messed around with some wild human experiments. Ban just grinned back, not saying anything else.
Lately, I've had a strong addiction to watching manhwa and manga recap videos. Every single day, I find myself binging one after another, losing hours and days doing absolutely nothing productive. And honestly, it's getting out of hand. So, maybe we can make these viral videos too. I mean, look at the views, the growth, the community these creators are building. It looks simple, right? But that's a trap. You go down this endless rabbit hole, spending money, losing sleep, hiring editors and writers from Fiverr and Upwork, and still feel like you've been robbed. Because don't forget how emotional the YouTube algorithm can be with making videos go viral. It's unpredictable, especially when the market's saturated, competition's relentless, and somehow other creators are dropping 10-hour videos daily while you're stuck trying to finish one. That's when I realized something had to change. So, I built the solution, the Webtoon Narrative Suite, a complete one-click system that handles everything from cropping, script narration, text-to-speech, image processing, and full video generation in one smooth process. Save money, reduce hours of work, and have a tool that only gives you straight results. Click on the link down below and experience it for yourself. And if you want even more tools to supercharge your YouTube recap journey, visit my Ko-Fi and Patreon pages where I drop weekly new tools designed to keep you ahead as AI continues to steal our jobs. So tap in now before you get left behind.